Shut up!
Alright, I'm gonna be completely honest with you all. I'm not a huge fanboy of this series. However, there are many things that I do love and find interesting about it. And since the entire saga is complete, I've decided to dedicate 3 separate videos to reviewing the fluctuating quality of these films, because there is a lot I have to say about them. To get this out of the way, no, I will not be reviewing the TV shows or the smaller movies, just the ones of this saga. And I will start by reviewing the original trilogy. And like all trilogies, we must start at the beginning. The first Star Wars is indeed a classic. In many ways, it's a perfect story, despite how weird and unorthodox it would be to someone who isn't familiar with the universe. But thanks to its lovely cast of characters and overarching themes, it managed to become such a huge success that it's now often considered to be the death of cinema. So back in the early days of cinema, films used to be more of an art form. They made money, sure, but overall filmmaking was more of a platform for talented writers. Then Star Wars came out, and it kind of changed everything. People realized that movies were an effective way to make money. Not only that, they could be sold to even more people in foreign countries, particularly China. And thanks to that, we now have films like Iron Man vs. Ghostbusters remake, the DC Cinematic Universe movies, the Marvel Cinematic. Now, whether or not you consider this to be a bad thing, you have to admit this franchise was indeed a passion project for some people, and the amount of money and effort put into the special effects alone is something to appreciate.
Designed and built by a Hollywood special effects house, it is photographed by a computer-controlled camera. By photographing the model against a blue screen, it will later be possible to add different backgrounds and other moving objects to the scene. This can be done by means of double and triple exposures. The work is painstaking and precise. It is an endeavor where details count. To effect attacks on the model by the rebel planes, explosions are sometimes triggered by primitive mechanisms. Similarly, the miniature planes are wired with small charges. It took 2 years and $3.5 million to do the Star Wars miniature and optical effects.
Now that being said, what do I think of the actual movie? To me, the story is pretty linear, but in a way that's kind of what I like about it. It's not convoluted, it's straightforward. Everything goes together so nicely. In fact, upon rewatching it, I've come to appreciate some of the smaller aspects of the plot, all the little detail that expands on the general conflict.
The rebellion will continue to gain a support in the Imperial Senate.
The Imperial Senate will no longer be of any concern to us. I have just received word that the Emperor has dissolved the Council permanently. The last remnants of the old Republic have been swept away.
It's impossible. How will the Emperor maintain control without the bureaucracy?
The regional governors now have direct control over their territories. Fear will keep the local systems in line. Fear of this battle station.
One thing that annoyed me, however, which wasn't even really this film's fault, were the additions of the special edition. Like, what the fuck was the point in introducing Jabba the Hutt? Wouldn't it be a better idea to keep his identity a secret until his introduction in the third movie? I guess George Lucas thought this made sense, even though it really doesn't.
Jabba, you're a wonderful human being.
But these fucking additional special effects that George Lucas added are so distracting and pointless. Like, I'm trying to enjoy this movie and all of a sudden this CGI piece of crap walks by covering the entire screen. It's so jarring to watch this older film with all these amazing practical effects and then see these fucking things. They don't add anything to the visual narrative or the storytelling, so why are they there? But yeah, besides the shit that George Lucas decided to add decades later, I still do really appreciate the amount of personal effort and financial risk he went through to make this movie. For all we know, this franchise could have been dead on arrival thanks to the concept alone. But instead, everyone managed to pull through. It's a great movie. A classic movie. A tale of one person representing hope, defying all odds to become a hero, and fighting against an evil greater than himself. But of course, it's about to be challenged. So I don't think it's incredibly necessary to explain how good this movie is, but I'm gonna do it anyways because fuck you. This is definitely the best Star Wars movie. I mean, there's not much competition. But still, it's an objectively great film. There are a lot of reasons it's so good, but for starters, it just does a great job developing the Force and Luke Skywalker and all the new characters. The story and lessons it presents gives the audience more connection to this universe and all the magic that exists within it.
For my ally is the Force. And a powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow. It energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter.
Also, especially compared to New Hope, this plot is much more engaging and the sequence of events builds up to the final conclusion excellently. However, if I were to guess what people love most about this movie, I would definitely say Luke. As far as classic writing goes, I would definitely say that he's one of the best examples of character development. All of his struggles and trials to become a Jedi are what make him really interesting, and as a result, he's not only a character that audiences can look up to, but relate with on a personal level. Now, I know this is a bit abrupt because I literally just started talking about him, but I'm gonna reserve the rest of my thoughts on Luke for the third video on this saga, because there's a lot that needs to be said about his character that I just don't want to have to repeat in 2 videos. I'm not exaggerating when I say that this is Star Wars at its best. Star Wars generally deals with very simplistic themes of good and evil, but at its best, it explores the gray area in between. And witnessing Luke learn about the Force while overcoming all of the massive struggles he endures really highlights that theme. Honestly, I wish I could experience this film again without knowing anything about it, thanks to the overwhelming popularity of it, along with the prequels. The main plot twists are pretty much expected. Like, imagine how incredible it must have been to hear the "I am your father" line for the first time without actually expecting it. Another one to add to the pile for reasons why we should invest in a memory wiping machine. Anyways, even though this film is pretty much as good as it gets for this entire saga, it is still a masterpiece of a film, even if there are a few hilarious moments. Well, you know what they say. Incest is wincest. So now we have the final movie in the trilogy, and it was, So let me start by saying that overall I think this movie is good. The first act is amazing and the final confrontation is pretty great. But to be honest with you, there are a few things I just really don't like about it. Of course I had to sit through this fucking shit.
Who did that?
I hope you burn in hell. But my main issue with it are the scenes that take place on Endor, and yes, I'm talking about these fucking things. Like, I'm not saying that the Ewoks ruined the entire film, but it's just so obvious to me that the only reason they were added was so they could sell merchandise, because there's no other reason for their role in this movie. Because up until the very first scene they're featured in, they've been developing the very serious nature of this galaxy-spanning conflict. Then they shove these stupid teddy bear creatures into the most pivotal battle of the series, and they kick their asses! Like, you're really trying to tell me that these fat, stubby little pieces of shit can take on an entire legion of stormtroopers? It certainly makes me take this highly militarized, futuristic, galaxy-spanning empire less seriously.
It was I who allowed the Alliance to know the location of the shield generator. It is quite safe from your pitiful little band. An entire legion of my best troops awaits the...
Like, I know they're probably trying to emphasize that earlier line from Yoda about how size doesn't matter, but their way of presenting it is just so stupid. But anyways, aside from that, this film is still pretty great. Once again, like the rest of the series, the practical effects are outstanding, and the characters, oh my god. Witnessing Han, Luke, and Leia develop as not only characters, but also as friends is what really ties the story together. Just compare these characters to how they started out at the beginning of the trilogy and how they are at the end. Luke overcomes his flaws to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi. Leia becomes a better friend and leader, and Han Solo goes from being a selfish smuggler who only cares about money, to a hero who's willing to fight for a cause greater than himself in order to help his friends and others. When it comes to what makes this trilogy great, it's not just the amazing practical effects or the iconic score, it's the lessons and personal growth each character experiences. This, at the end of the day, is what people love about Star Wars, something that's been largely forgotten about by Lucasfilm. Anyways, that covers my thoughts on the original trilogy. While The Return of the Jedi did have some flaws, it was a great film, and it did a good job at bringing closure to the series.